Call to order of a regular meeting of the Goodyear City Council, Monday, 8 March 2010. Would you please join Councilmember Osborne in the Pledge of Allegiance and invocation?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Bow your heads. Heavenly Father, our city and its people humbly ask for your guidance and protection. Your wisdom can lead us with hope for a bright future, prosperity, and success. We ask that you heal our sick and guard our heroes with your bountiful love. In your mighty name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Regarding roll call, as you know, Councilmember Antoniak resigned a couple weeks ago. We believe we have his replacement here this evening, and she'll be called to the dais at the latter part of this meeting. But we have two of our members are ill this evening. I think it's colds, Councilmember Cavalier and Vice Mayor Lord, so they won't be with us. So could I have a motion to excuse Councilmember Cavalier and Vice Mayor Lord?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, 4-0. Opportunity now to review the expenditures for the month of January. Do we have any comments? Seeing none, could I have a motion to approve the expenditures for January?
So moved.
Motion from Councilmember Souza,
Second.
second from Councilmember Osborne. All those in favor signify by stating aye, please.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, 4-0. We have two items on communications this evening. And first, we'll start with the Youth Commission, and Paris Spies will introduce members from our Youth Commission.
This will be the. Yeah. Good evening, Mayor and Council. This evening, we have two Youth Commission members. One's actually a former member, Elijah Height, a senior at Millennium High School. He was the 2009 Youth Commission chairperson. And we also have Sharon Ahmedpour, this year's Youth Commission chairperson, who's also a junior at Desert Edge High School. What the Youth Commission did last year was audit the city departments to see how we're tracking on the resolution we adopted last year for the Youth and Family platform. So with that, I'll introduce you to the Youth Commission.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor and Council. This evening, we are going to be presenting to you the results of our 2009 Youth and Family Audit. Okay. In our table of contents, we have the purpose of our Youth and Family Audit, the department results, and the Youth and Family Audit scorecard. And following by that, we have our final analysis.
Our main purpose of the Youth and Family Audit was to verify that the City of Goodyear, all of our departments were keeping up with the National League of Cities platform that was adopted by Mayor and Council in February 2009.
Okay, we're going to say how the Youth Commission each thing.
The Youth Commission was split up into different groups, and they each had to interview a specific department. So these are the following departments that we had data collected for.
Okay, our first department is Parks and Recreation. They have active programs and policies for all 4 seasons. They have adult sports, youth sports, special interest classes, 50-plus trips, special events, and aquatics programs.
The Public Works and Water Resources Department had Desert Dan Marshall Challenges. They offered free tours and materials to schools and offered free materials to encourage good water habits, such as shower timers, books on conservation, and rain gauges.
Our fire and police department, their active programs and policies are urban survival, school resource officer program, the Explorers program, the Goodyear Teen Summer Academy, course and classroom presentations, as in Shop with a Cop, Students Against Drunk Driving, Boys and Girls Club, and more. To better organize the data that we collected, we've created this scorecard. Each department is indicated on the left, and each platform or each category has up at the top is indicated by an X if it has met the requirement.
All right, early child development, that requirement was met by Parks and Recreation, Water Resources, Fire, and Police.
Youth development was met by all 5 of our city departments that we audited.
And education after school was met by Parks and Recreation and Police.
Health and safety was met also once again by every single department that we audited.
The youth in transition requirement was met by Parks and Recreation, Fire, and Police.
Family economic success was met by Parks and Recreation and Public Works.
And neighborhood and community was met by all departments.
Each of the 5 departments that we interviewed, we did on the basis of youth and family.
In our final analysis, the overall City of Goodyear is well positioned to meet its policies and programs objectives to strengthen families and improve outcomes for children and youth.
We found that Goodyear is a family-friendly municipality.
We also found that Goodyear is an efficiently managed city whose government operations are leading the way and raising the standards for other cities to follow.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, for your time this evening. Do you have any questions?
John?
Yeah, thank you very much, and I'm sure that we'd like to make comments here. Elijah, you're a senior,
Correct.
and Sharon,
A junior.
where?
Desert Edge High School?
Okay, and you're at
Millennium High School.
Okay. Well, thanks for the efforts you put in for the last year, and the challenge now is yours, Sharon, right?
Thank you.
And we thank you for accepting that challenge very much. You've done a great job this evening.
Thank you.
You know, the scorecard, I think, will come in handy because I attended a after-school program conference last week, and having that information, because it looks like the after-school section of your scorecard only had 2 X's. So that was good information to have. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate all your efforts.
Thank you.
No, excellent job. The only question I have is within the report, was there any recommendations that you may have come up with on a couple of the areas where there was no X's?
Yes, in, I believe, the packet that you guys have,
Okay.
it had a recommendation that we asked each department. So whatever best suited them to meet those requirements, they stated so in that packet.
Okay, thank you.
And thank the other 6 members, will you?
Definitely.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good job. Thanks a lot. We'll now move to report on I-10 and the closures associated with the interchanges and overpasses.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Tonight we have Brock Barnhart from ADOT, who is here to discuss an update on I-10 construction, the various projects that we're working on right now, and also the closures and restrictions and the public outreach efforts. With that, I'll turn it over to Brock.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Appreciate the opportunity to come out and brief you on I-10 this evening.
Thank you.
I always like to start off with really showing the regional transportation map, because that's what we're really charged with as a region in delivering transportation needs for Maricopa County. And this is really the roadmap that ADOT follows as the implementer of a regional plan. Also, the purpose and need of I-10. Why are we doing what we're doing out on I-10? Why are we improving I-10? It's really predicated on traffic volumes are increasing as growth has developed along I-10 corridor, the congestion, and then also the unpredictability of travel times that we're currently on I-10, and added delays from frequencies and crashes on I-10. This graphic really illustrates I-10 is much more than what is currently going on along the corridor right now with the widening projects. There's several projects that comprise the I-10 improvements. These are just a few of those. I'll get more specific into the sections that are within the city of Goodyear as far as the inside-outside widening projects. The first project that kicked off the improvement projects were the construction of the interchange at Bollard. That was completed in spring of 2008, a successful partnership between ADOT and the city of Goodyear in delivering a new half-mile interchange at Bollard between Litchfield and Estrella Parkways. The next project, again, is completed. It was adding one general purpose lane along with an HOV lane in each direction to I-10 from Loop 101 to Dysart Road. We completed that project later in 2009, opened up just in time for the holidays in early 2010. The current project that we're working on right now is the outside widening, and that's from Dysart to Sayreville Avenue. That is adding one general purpose lane along with an auxiliary lane. The auxiliary lane is really that ramp lane that prevents the weaving and merging as you enter or exit the freeway. We anticipate having this current project done by early 2011. I wanted to focus on some of the elements that you may see out there as part of this improvement project. I'm starting at Bollard. This is what Bollard actually looks like today with that false work put in place. The false work is really supporting structures so we can build the bridge foundations to expand the bridges to accommodate outside lanes. So the proposed schedule for Bollard, we've already went through the first closure to erect the false work. That occurred Monday starting at 1 a.m. and it opens back up Friday at 4 p.m. and remains open during the weekends. We do anticipate a closure number 2 to take this false work down in April. There will be ramp closures also associated with the Bollard interchange. We anticipate 40-day ramp closures of all 4 ramps to occur either in July or August if we're staying on schedule. This is Litchfield Road. This is a picture of Litchfield Road false work going up during the inside widening. Litchfield, the proposed schedule for Litchfield is Tuesdays at 1 a.m. overnight, opening back up Thursday at 4 p.m. and then staying open during the weekends. The first closure of Litchfield is scheduled to occur either in May or June. I think right now it's anticipated late May. Closure 2 would be to take the false work down, and that is scheduled in either August or September. Litchfield, we've been able to minimize the days of ramp closures on Litchfield from 60 days to 40 days, and that will occur in September or October. Estrella Pebble Creek Parkway, again, we have gone through the first closure for Estrella to set the false work. That schedule is a Monday, 1 a.m., again opening up at Friday, 4 p.m., and remains open during the weekends. Again, closure 1 has been complete. We look to have closure number 2 to take the false work down in May. There will also be 40-day ramp closures at the Estrella location planned for May or July. Dysart Road will have Crossroad closures as well under a schedule of Tuesdays in the morning, reopening on Thursdays at 4 p.m. and remaining open during the weekends. Closure 1 is scheduled either June or July. Closure 2 would then be to take the false work down in October or November. Ramp closures are currently in existence right now at Dysart. We hope to have those ramps open by the end of this month in time for NASCAR. Again, we do have another project to the west that I wanted to discuss a little bit, and that goes from Sayreville out to Verado Way. That is adding 1 additional lane in each direction within the existing median of I-10. We look to have this current project done by mid-2011 as well. I did put in some pictures of what is currently going on there. Again, we're widening I-10 to the median, and this shows that we're making some progress within the median area and getting ready to essentially pave that section. Perryville Road is also undergoing the same type of concept with false work, that supporting structural at its bridges. This is just a top view of that. Perryville Crossroad closures are a little bit different than what we're seeing going on here with the outside widening project. These closures go for a continuous 90 days. We look to have Perryville Road open by mid-April. I believe Citrus is coming up shortly as well. That would also be a 90-day closure at that interchange for the bridge construction. Some of the things that we're doing out there to prepare the community and working with businesses and trying to get the word out in regards to this schedule is, current updates to City Council and staff members, doing proactive meetings with stakeholders, the website updates and email notices. That is an example of our weekly email notice that goes out every Thursday for this project with the weekend closures or restrictions, and also to share successes as part of the project, milestones and what to expect that's coming up. We also do fun things like project tours. This was a project tour that we did during the inside widening project, where we took out some elected officials and the media out to tour the project to help tell the story of what we were doing from a construction standpoint. I think that concludes it. I'll go ahead and leave my information up here in case members of the public have questions as well or would like to get additional information on the I-10 project, but I would entertain any questions if you have them.
Sure, well, thank you. Thanks for coming out.
Thank you.
Opportunity for the public. Any questions? Good time to ask them if you would like. Public's happy. Any comments from council?
What kind of accommodations are you making for the tourists that are coming here for the ball games?
Well, that is something as a team that we had to look hard at as we were designing this and trying to minimize the impacts. Right now, there's not going to be any closures during spring training events. We're also missing NASCAR events, and we're also taking into account the holidays that are coming up as well. So we're trying to catch those off-peak times to do these closures and the days to do the closures, what suits best, while still trying to do a very complex project of a major interstate. So again, we kind of, on the upfront side, going through the design phase, we'll work together with our regional partners to try to avoid as much as we possibly can to minimize the impacts for tourists and a traveling public.
And does this also coincide with businesses in Goodyear?
Yes, we have been proactively out there communicating with businesses, upcoming closures and restrictions, and really to try to build that rapport with the businesses to try to see if, you know, the work has to occur during the times. It's just a complexity of the project itself and the safety aspects that are involved to accomplish, you know, setting major beams that I showed in my pictures. But, you know, we're here to be a resource for the businesses as well. Anything we can do to get the word out, help them get the word out to their customers, we'd be more than happy to do that.
Good. I appreciate your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Osborne.
Thank you. Actually, excuse me. Oh, no, now I hope I'm not the next one. I know, exactly. I had quite a few questions, and as a business owner that is affected by this, I'm hearing from, they may not be out in this audience, but we do have businesses that are very upset about this and have had a lot of questions, and I'm very thankful that you've come out to make this presentation. I certainly hope the media takes this down and gets that message out too. You know, I think that some of the issues that I've heard, there's questions that are asked that I think that you'll be able to speak about, and some of them we know, I mean, this is a necessary evil. Nobody wants it, and it's a terrible time to have it. I mean, that's a given. But, you know, some of the questions that had been asked, why can there not be one single lane open at all times? Why can this not be done only at night? Why couldn't it be done during the summer only? Could this be done Sunday through Thursday instead of, you know, how did you come up with the 3 days that you picked? As a talk to different businesses, they know that your team has come in to give papers showing, you know, what's coming up, which very, very appreciative. But I'd like to hear a little more of some kind of survey done by the business to the businesses, asking them what days affect you the most. I mean, you're picking 3 days in the middle of the week. Well, maybe a majority of the businesses say, no, that's what's killing me. I'd rather you be closed this part of the weekend. Something, I mean, you know, asking them, going out and finding out what affects them the most is what I would feel better about. Also, I was asked to give you the message that there needs to be better directional signage. I think that if we were able to get another half dozen signs at these intersections, your portable electronic ones that stated, this one's closed, go here, or vice versa, because sometimes even though you try to stick to a schedule, you don't always make it, and you know, I understand that. And then I think another thing that could be part of this survey of asking our businesses, would they rather than taking the Band-Aid off weekly by being closed, is it more appropriate just to be closed for 10 days and you're done, and we're done? Or is it better that it's spread out for an entire month, but it's only 3 days? I don't know that answer, but I think that's, our businesses deserve that question. And so that's, I know that's a lot I'm throwing at you, but I appreciate it. Thank you.
I really would just soon leave it alone and let ADOT run with their schedule and get the road built. But if other members of council agree for this survey, then we'll ask ADOT to do that. Personally, I just soon, let's get the road built. We've already affected some businesses on Estrella, apparently. I didn't hear any complaints, but we have. and I don't think we should treat Litchfield any differently.
Oh, no, I'm not stating that at all. I'm sorry. No, what I'm stating, I know it needs to happen, and I'm not trying to stop that. These are questions that I'm being asked by other business people. And so that's what I'm trying to relay to ADOT. We're not trying to stop the process, but asking the businesses, these are the 3 days we've picked. Is that good for you? I mean, they may have something else to say. You know, I really don't know that. And you're speaking about the end of May. I mean, we've still got 2 months to contend with this. I mean, I don't see how that would stop, you know, and just a proactive approach about it. So I don't want it to sound like, as a business owner, quite frankly, I'm a destination business. Closing Litchfield slows down for that time, but people come right back when it's open. So it doesn't affect me like it affects a drive-through business. You know, somebody that says, oh, I can't hit Litchfield, or I can't hit Dysart, or I can't hit Estrella, oh, I'm going to go to In-N-Out instead of Burger King, whatever it is. You know, those are people that are affected.
Yeah, I'm not implying you wanted to actually shut it down, but I do feel like, you know, the right time to close roads is your job. I mean, you've got experience, you've done the light rail, you've done, or at least you're involved in that, you've done a lot of things, and you try to minimize the disruption of business. And I would hope that that's what you did here when you laid out this schedule. At the same time, you have to allow for the effective and efficient movement of transportation. So how do you feel about that? Pardon me?
That's all right.
I would just like to make sure that to continue the communication with the business, because I have heard from people on Estrella Parkway, the businesses, how their business has been hit, and I think it's important to make sure that they know what days these things are open or closed, and not only that, from signage to make sure that that's accurate for people to get back, because like Joanne mentioned, restaurants are probably the ones that are hit the worst, because what happens is on that particular day, if you can't go there, you're just shopping somewhere else, and with the economy being the way it is right now, I just want to put as least burden as we can on our businesses out there. I realize this is an important project, but you know, try to take some of that into consideration when you're working with them. That's all. Because again, there are some that deal specifically with that. If they miss that date, it's gone. They don't come back.
Okay, Councilmember Souza.
Yeah, the other evening we were coming home from Phoenix, westbound on I-10, and we tried to get off at Litchfield. I think you'd have to have additional markings on that for the exit, because I think we almost passed it up.
Mayor, Councilmember, you mean Dysart?
Litchfield.
Litchfield or?
Litchfield Road, yeah.
Okay.
There's nothing there telling us Litchfield Road is coming up
Oh, okay.
on the exit. Okay.
Could you answer a couple of those questions, though, as to why you can't be closed at certain times? I would appreciate that.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Osborne. Really to answer the questions in regards to keeping lanes open, nighttime work, the project is very complex in the sense that it's really safety components of the project that don't allow us to open a roadway on a nightly basis. I wanted to demonstrate that in the pictures that I showed of the false work itself. There are beams that expand over the whole crossroad itself, at least over one bound of traffic. Our goal is really to just maintain a safe crossroad for the traveling public to go beneath and not compromise that while still completing the project as delivered within a 3-day time frame, and then to have that back open for the weekends. We're also working hard to maintain a schedule to accommodate events during the peak times, to stay open, to miss the holidays. During the early phases of the inside widening, we did do a random selection of I won't call it a survey, but we did go out and met with businesses proactively to ask and really to build that readiness. And the feedback we got was the schedule we're going with. And really, we didn't hear many complaints about it the first go around. It may be different this time. We're in a different state of the economy. During that time, we didn't hear many complaints, so we kind of just followed suit, staying with the same schedule to get the work done while still avoiding the other major events, and also to get the complex work done under the safety restraints that we're faced with. I can tell you one of the things that my team is charged with is to ensure that the businesses have the information that they're looking for to help them out during this process. We realize it's not an easy thing to go through. We can do several things to make sure that they have the tools and the resources to get out to clients or customers to help guide them to the businesses while the closures are in place, and continue to just reach out to the businesses, I think, is our main objective during the closures.
Are closure number 2 shorter in duration than closures number 1?
Typically, we have a pretty successful track record in meeting our expectations when we say that it's going to be a 4-week. At Estrella, we beat our expectation. It opened a week early just in time for spring training. As the process moves down and we continue to do this, the learning curve gets out of the way and they become more efficient in doing what they're doing out there.
Thank you. Further comments?
Just stay proactive, please. Thank you.
Okay. Hey, thanks.
Thank you.
Appreciate your info.
Thank you.
And insight. Thanks. Opportunity now for anyone from the public who would like to address the council on a non-agenda item. I understand we have 2 cards?
3.
3 cards.
The first one is Howard Broadbeck.
Thank you very much. My name is Howard Broadbeck. I live on La Riata Avenue in Goodyear, and I'm a member of the Citizens Budget Committee that you put together to evaluate the current budget situation in Goodyear. And I realize that this is supposed to be a statement. I didn't realize that till I came here. I thought I could ask you a question, so I'm going to try to formulate it in a statement. We had a presentation. We've done a lot of good work, and we're actually getting to some interesting work coming up, I think, in the next, probably the most interesting work in the next few weeks, because up till now it's been mostly informational pass to us. But we had a very interesting presentation by Larry, your finance director, last week, which I was curious as to whether or not the council sees that kind of thing, or if you're seeing what is going on in the budget committee as it goes on, or whether you're waiting to just see some presentation at the end. But anyway, to put this in the form of a statement, my statement would be, I think the presentation that he did was eye-opening. And if you have not heard of that presentation, I would encourage you to at least get a copy of it, or maybe even invite him here to explain it to you. Because what we asked him to do, as a couple of us are former business managers on the committee, we asked him to look at what's the required run rate of operating expenses in the city, and to take out one-times and to take out capital expenditures, so that we could get what I would call a run rate, a city run rate. And he and his staff did an excellent job of that. They went back through 2008, 2009, and then they also looked at where we are through 2010. And as a result of that, I got a very different impression after seeing that from what I'd had up until that point about actually where Goodyear has gotten itself to as far as controlling some of its expenses. So that was basically the reason I came here. It would be to encourage the City Council to, on an ongoing basis, understand some of the things we might be doing in that Budget Committee, and particularly this one presentation that Larry did last week, which he was highly complimented on, as well as his staff, by the committee, because I think we all got a much better understanding of the city's operating finances as a result of doing that. And I would ask again, if you have time to do that and are interested, my time is up. Oh, I got 30 seconds. That you would do the same thing. So I'd encourage you to take a look at it.
Thank you very much. Let me ask you, Brian, let's see where we are there. We're going to meet on the 22nd on Universities and City Center. Is that correct?
Mayor. It's also going to include some budget, kind of a glimpse into how the budget is going to be managed going forward.
So, okay, great. Can we receive Larry's briefing before that at a special meeting? Would you like to do that?
Yeah.
Maybe we have a meeting sometime this week. I want to see if we can schedule that, have a council work session. I'm out of town Sunday through Wednesday, and I can cancel that if I have to. I'm going to Washington, and I should be there. But this is really important. I agree with you.
Yeah, and the one thing that he did was, I know you just talked about budget presentations. You know, one of the emphasis that a number of us have now in this committee is we don't want to talk about the budget anymore. You know, a budget is a budget is a budget. It's something you put together at the beginning of the year. It's something you think you're going to do throughout the year. Sometimes you meet it, sometimes you don't. What we asked him for was show us your actuals. Show us what you've been spending, actually what you've been spending, and where you've been spending it. And take out the lump items, take out the one-offs, take out the capital expenditures, so we can see, you know, to run this city, to you know, employ the police department, the fire department, all the services that are required day to day, what's it really take to do that? And like I said, the presentation to many of us was quite eye-opening, and I think it would be something you might be interested in.
Want to see if we can schedule it for this week?
We can look at schedules, certainly.
Anybody opposed to that?
No, keep in mind that you have two members that are ill. I don't know how extensive that's going to be.
Yeah, if they aren't well, we would delay it.
Yeah.
Well, you know, and just to kind of answer, I know you were supposed to do a statement, but when we put the budget committee together, a lot of council felt that we didn't want to be a presence there to make
Right.
it seem like, you know, we had some kind of, I don't know, aura over you. And so, you know, so I appreciate you asking that, but it was more a sense of, you know, we don't want it to feel that way, like there's too many staff, too much council, too much this, so
Yeah,
you know.
I didn't mean to say asking you to attend the meetings. I was saying,
thought you were.
no, I was saying, are you seeing some of the output from the meetings? For example, one of the outputs from these meetings is Larry's presentation, and you know, that would be one piece that I think you might find really interesting.
Okay, so we'd like to see it this week if we can.
Well, is it online still? I mean, is that still on the?
I don't know if they put it online. I don't know if it's a document.
Yes,
I'd
it
like to
should
have
be
Larry
online.
brief it so we can actually interact.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's see if we can do it maybe Wednesday or Thursday.
We'll look at calendars. And again, if you want to look at it, it is online, as I understand, but I understand also the interaction that you would have if it was face-to-face.
It'd be a great way to start off this next couple months of looking at the budget. And first off, we have to see where we've been, and that's what you're going to.
Yeah, and without his explanation, you know, if you just went to the online and you looked at this without any, it's going to look like a foreign language to you probably, because it's just solid numbers. But I think with his explanation, it becomes much more clear.
Well, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Next speaker is Joan Shields.
I have a handout. Hi, good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Joan Shield. I live at 3883 North 161st in Goodyear, Arizona. For the past 8 weeks, I too have been involved in the Budget Committee meetings. I have been trying to get a complete understanding as to why our city is in debt, had to raise taxes, and then found an additional $7 million in a rainy day fund. I wanted to find out how my elected representatives on City Council were in the budget process and overseeing the budget by reading old meeting minutes. On several occasions, there were comments from council members that really concerned me. They were in regards to lack of interest, lack of verification on information from city manager, and lack of time. The September 28th meeting shows clearly their attitude towards the budget. At this meeting, Council was voting to adopt resolutions on policy number 200, employee compensation, and policy 600, attendance and leave. Council member Cavalier is concerned on how the policy reads. He stated that passing these amendments would place more power in the hands of the city manager and less power in the hands of city council members. Cavalier would like to see this rewritten to establish more of a balance of power between mayor, council, and the city manager. Vice Mayor Lord said that she is a firm believer that city manager is the administrator. She said, as council members, we do not have the information or the time to do this. Council members Antoniak, Sousa, Osborne also agreed. Mayor Kavanaugh said we are dealing with a budget crisis and need to be involved in how the city is going to resolve the budget crisis. If there are to be wage cuts or furloughs, council should be involved in the process. Councilmember Cavalier said that the council members, to be effective, they have to be responsible and be able to discuss with the city manager. While the council hired the city manager to manage, he wants to make sure there is a true balance of power between the city manager and city council. Mayor and council has provided the city a great opportunity to have a balanced budget through the cooperation of the Budget Committee for 2011. Our committee will soon be making our final recommendations towards the 2011 budget. Many, if not all of our recommendations are going to require city council members' involvement, input, and execution. The city manager is not going to be able to implement all the recommendations on his own. I want to make sure that city council will be there for the Citizens Budget Committee. The committee needs your interest, you interested in our recommendations, and your willingness to be very involved in overseeing and implementing our recommendations. There are 3 positions open on council to be filled this November. Most important duties you have as a city council member is being involved in the budget development and overseeing its execution. We, the people, are your employer through our vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Just one correction, the election is in March.
Oh, it's in
June.
March.
Yeah, okay, it's not November.
Okay, thanks.
It is for the House of Representatives and the Senate.
Right.
Federal, yeah, okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
The last card I have is for Al Lazorio. Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry, Al.
It's an agenda item.
Yeah, it's agenda
Yeah.
item, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
It is an agenda item?
Yes, it's the
Yeah.
alarm ordinance.
Oh, okay, thank you. Okay, seeing no further comments, we'll move to the consent agenda, and thank you from our members of the Budget Committee. Ask the clerk to read consent items A through I by title only, please.
Mayor, item C is pulled for this evening, the park and ride facility.
Yes, that is correct, thank you.
Item A, approved draft minutes of a work session and a regular meeting held on February 8th, 2010. Item B, approve a request from Troy DeVos, representing Quick Trip Corporation for a Series 10 liquor license, number 100758880, for Quick Trip Store, number 1401, located at the southeast corner of Estrella Parkway in Fillmore. Item D, authorize city manager to execute the professional services contract with Malcolm Purney, Inc. to provide construction administration services and electronic operation and maintenance manuals for the construction of 157th Avenue Water Reclamation Facility Phase 2B Expansion Project, Reclaim Reservoir and Booster Facility in an amount not to exceed $887,744. Item E, adopt Resolution 10-1362, authorizing the mayor to execute an intergovernmental agreement between the City of Goodyear and the City of Litchfield Park for the provisions of mutual assistance with building inspections and plan review, providing for separability and providing for an effective date. Item F, approve the final plat for Palm Valley Promenade, subdividing 44.5 acres into 6 commercial lots, 1 multifamily residential lot, and 1 tract located at the northeast corner of McDowell Road and Bullard Avenue within the Palm Valley Promenade Planned Area Development, subject to stipulations. Item G, approve the final plat for Pebble Creek Phase 2, Unit 42, Phase 1, subdividing 15.4 acres into 54 single-family lots and 5 tracts generally located north of the northwest corner of Saraville Avenue and Clubhouse Drive within the Pebble Creek Phase 2 pad, subject to stipulations. Item H, adopt Resolution 10-1364, declaring as a public record that a certain document titled Chapter 21, Alarm Systems, Ordinance Text Amendment, filed with the City Clerk and providing for an effective date. Second recommendation is to adopt Ordinance 10-1211, amending provisions of the Goodyear City Code by replacing Chapter 21, Alarm Systems, in its entirety, providing for severability and an effective date. Item I, authorize the city manager to execute requisite documentation for a water storage agreement with the Tonopah Recharge Constructed Facility and renew water storage agreements for the Agua Fria and Hieroglyphic Mountain Recharge Constructed Facilities.
Okay, would anyone in the public wish to remove an item from the consent agenda? I'm assuming Mr. Osorio would like to remove H on the alarm. Did you want to discuss it? Yeah, I guess so, yeah. In support. Okay, well then you don't want it removed necessarily. Okay. Anyone in the public wish to remove an item? Okay, anyone in council wish to remove an item?
I would.
I'd like-
Go ahead. I apologize.
I'd like to remove H. I'd like to hear a presentation on H.
That's what I was going to ask for.
I was going to do the same thing.
Okay.
So there's a desire to see H, obviously.
About the alarm ordinance.
Anything else? Okay, then let's see where we are. Could I have a motion then to approve A through B, D through G, and I?
So moved.
Second?
Motion from Councilmember Osborne, a second from Councilmember Pizzillo. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Sousa?
Aye.
Councilmember Osborne?
Aye.
Councilmember Pizzillo?
Aye.
Mayor Kavanaugh?
Aye.
Passes 4-0.
Okay, now we're at H, and that's the replacement of a chapter in a resolution or in an ordinance on alarm systems. It's probably good just to have the presentation.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Tonight, coming before you to ask for some changes made to our current alarm ordinance. This evening, what I'd like to talk about is just kind of a brief history of our alarm ordinance and where we are today with that. Some of our staffing issues that are used in figuring out why we came to this issue, some of the proposed changes, the fiscal impact of these changes, and then what we're going to be doing should this be approved in the next 30 days. The alarm ordinance was created in 1997, and there was an attempt to decrease the rising number of false alarms that police were responding to. We did require in that ordinance permitting for alarm monitoring companies as well as the subscribers of those companies. And we levied fines after the third false alarm. In looking at just kind of that staffing issues, in 1997 we responded to 793 alarms. 785 of those alarms were false. So we had about a 99% false alarm rate. In 2009, in looking at this, we responded to 2,681 alarms, of which 2,668 were false alarms for a 98% false alarm rate. Further, with our staffing issues and looking at that number of alarms that we responded to in 2009, that equates to 4,002 hours of officer time. And in considering that, what that means is that's 2 officers full-time just answering alarm calls around the clock, responding to these non-verified alarms. We were doing the job for the alarm companies in their verification. These hours don't include any dispatcher time or any other staff time related to that. Looking at a combination of over the last 2 years, 2008 and 2009, 5,357 alarms, only 44 of those generated a report. So still in those 2 years we had the 99% false alarm rate. Of those 44 reports that were generated, 7 resulted in an arrest, 4 for burglary and theft, 1 for criminal trespassing, and 2 for non-alarm activities. 1 was a warrant arrest, 1 was a drug arrest. The proposed changes that we're bringing before you is we need to change to a verified alarm response, meaning the alarm company needs to verify the alarm before they contact the police department. Goodyear Police will continue to respond immediately to any robbery alarm, any panic alarm, or burglar alarms meeting the following criteria, and that is multiple alarms or varying origin, meaning that if we get, for example, a window alarm set off, and then an interior motion that would lead us to believe that something is going on, where we've got multiple activations at the same location. Verification by an on-scene alarm company person saying that there is evidence to show that there is some possible criminal activity going on. Cameras or audio devices monitored by the alarm company showing that criminal activity was afoot. Any witness reports of glass breakage or other suspicious activity, and we would also respond at the request of the alarm company. However, we would change the ordinance, and we're recommending that we change the ordinance so that we're no longer penalizing the subscriber. We're no longer fining them. We would hold the alarm company responsible for that call should they need us to go out there, if it's a false alarm. So, for example, if an alarm company does get a hold of a subscriber and they say we've got an alarm activation, they could determine then should we respond or not, or should we have police respond. And we will go if they call us and tell us that. One of the things, too, from the standpoint of just awareness of alarms, any alarm call that does come in that we know not that we're not asked to respond to, we will air that through our dispatch center, so all officers will hear that an alarm call has been made. Only those that meeting that criteria will we actually dispatch an officer to. By airing all of those alarm calls, we're trying to be consistent with what other cities have done across the country, and that is make the officer working in that patrol area aware so that maybe it's not an immediate response or a high priority response, but they can still get there when they have time to do so. So we feel that's important. Alarm ordinance changes, the proposed changes, we would shift verifying responsibility to the alarm or monitoring company. We shouldn't be subsidizing a private industry with taxpayer dollars and using officer time in which to do that. The approach is to effectively adopted and used in many communities throughout this country. We've done extensive research, and I want to point out that Assistant Chief Lynn Parkin from the Avondale Police Department is here tonight, and they are also looking at this verified alarm response, very similar to the program that we're proposing tonight. The fiscal impact on this, the elimination of the alarm coordinator position, that position is currently frozen, and it was frozen when it was vacated last May. So we've done kind of just on a part-time basis. Currently in that position is an officer who's on light duty following knee surgery, and he is managing administratively that alarm program for us. We would transfer the permitting of the alarm companies, because they would still be required to have a permit to operate in our city. We would transfer those responsibilities to finance, and certainly we would work with them on databases and everything else that we have to show that those alarm companies a good address for them. The cost of the program annually, as under the current ordinance, was about $87,000. That included the salary and benefits and all of the equipment and space for that alarm coordinator. We could see a savings of about $32,295 in just looking at the elimination of that position and the elimination of the ordinance as it exists today. What do we do in the next 30 days? Should this be approved tonight, we would then be notifying all of our subscribers and all of our alarm companies that have permits with the city that we will be terminating that through this and a new procedure change. Certainly we'll be looking at probably doing some meetings to talk about this to the public, should that be necessary. We would cease taking permits from citizens. We would have to also train all of our police officers and dispatchers, those people getting the calls, those people responding to the calls, on the new procedures. And in considering, in light of this type of an ordinance change, we believe that it's important to report on a regular basis. So we're proposing a 30-day report to our city management on how this would be going. So we're looking at how many alarms did we respond to, how many were valid, how many were false, that type of thing, and what type of concerns from the public are we getting. Any questions on this?
Okay, let's start with the citizen, Mr. Osorio.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. I'm Alisario, a citizen of Goodyear, 10926 South Oakwood Drive, Estrella Mountain Ranch. I'm here to speak to the proposed changes of the city code that center about Chapter 21 with the alarm systems. As a member of the Citizens Budget Committee, we were asked to find new ways to help in the current economic downturn. For years, I had wondered why the resident alarm fee was so low and the residence permit system said to be inefficient. After doing independent research on the subject, I found additional information, some of which showed the past alarm system plan did not discourage a large number of false alarms and a permit application process which seemed dated. A lot of what Chief Brown had to say, I agree with. The old system had caused the loss of money due to an unnecessary deployment of police to false alarms. After numerous telephone calls to security alarm companies, Brinks, Broadview, ADT, I found some cities do it one way, others do it another way, several like Las Vegas, Nevada, not at all. I spoke with Deputy to the Chief of Police, John Rowan, and then Chief of Police, Mark Brown. They both were extremely helpful in describing the problem of false alarms and the resulting budgetary loss. Having read the proposed resolution of 101364, I would encourage the adoption of the ordinance of the 101211. So I support the changes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're now to council. Let's start with Councilmember Osborne.
Well, there's no denying that my life revolves around alarms, and I certainly want to support the police department and this ordinance. I do have a couple of questions. You know, it's very disheartening to hear that you've had to deal with this kind of false alarm number. I mean, that's quite a bit, and I certainly don't want a call coming from my place where a police officer is now kind of, it's probably false, and just has that, you know, not that same feeling when they go to answer something. So, you know, I appreciate what you're trying to accomplish here. I certainly pay alarm companies that they should be doing a better job, and I'm glad that this ordinance is putting it back in their lap, and I do appreciate that. Now, a couple of questions, though, that it did have. You mentioned in your slide presentation that robbery and panic alarms, or maybe medical panic alarm type things, would be still automatic, correct?
Automatic, yeah.
Okay, because in the discussion section, it says, accordingly, the police department is proposing that all robbery, panic, and burglar alarms meet one of the following criteria. And then you have a listing of different criteria. So the panic alarm bothers me that you have that. Now, maybe it didn't mean to be that way in the discussion, because in the ordinance it looks like you have it a different way.
Correct. And I think the language is a little bit misleading here, because it does talk about, we're proposing that all robbery, panic, and burglar alarms that meet one of the following criteria. So we're talking about burglar alarms that meet the criteria, not panic and robbery alarms.
Okay, so
so it's the burglar alarms that have to meet the criteria, not the other type of alarms.
Okay, so examples. Give me a couple examples of how this would occur. So say something. I might as well use my store. Say something happens in the store and the alarm company calls you. How are you guys then going to start establishing with these alarm companies? You're going to say, oh. What?
Yeah, they would our dispatchers would air that call that there's a burglar alarm at a specific location, right, and the officer in that area, when available, would go check that. Or they would go and check that if they were right there or had time available to do that. If it's a robbery or panic alarm, we're going to treat that like we do today already. There is going to be no difference in service on those.
So they're going to specifically ask what kind of
alarm. And if it's at night, it's probably going to be a burglar alarm.
Okay.
Because most of the times the panic alarms, the medical alert alarms, those type of alarms are manually activated somehow.
So in a home, if a home alarm is going off, and they immediately call you and they say, hey, this alarm's going off, and they go send the troops.
It's going to have to meet one of these kind of criteria before we would send an officer.
Okay.
Or if they said, look, we've contacted the homeowner, they said no one should be there, and they don't know why this alarm's going off, we need you to verify this for us. If we went and found out it was a false alarm, then we would charge that alarm company for that response.
Okay. Now, I know that it's great that the savings, not having staff and things like that. Do you not see that there's still going to need to be staff to bill these companies that are sending you on false alarms?
Well, and we don't view that as being as extensive as it is now.
Okay.
And in part of the process that we've worked out thus far is all of the permits, for example, annual permits would be due on the same day. So it's a once-a-year issue. And then all of the fines, that would be generated by the officer at the scene, filling out a form, and then that would be submitted for billing. So it would probably be invoiced off of that same form.
Okay.
So we're trying to streamline that process as well. But a very good point, yes.
All right. I guess really the last kind of suggestion I had to the ordinance, and you know, it's a suggestion, but it does put work on you, and that's under your section about penalties for failure to pay fees or fines. Right. You went through A, B, and C of how you would send these fines and stuff to the other alarm companies. You know, if I was a resident or a business and I found out that my police department was having a tough time getting money from the alarm company that I'm signed up with, I'd want to know about it. And so I just thought, you know, adding that you let that business or that resident know once you've hit this point that they're not responding, I would think that you should proactively tell them too.
Sure, and that's an excellent idea. And we've thought of that exact thing. And one of the things we're going to do, if it's over 60 days that they're not paying us, we can suspend their license to operate in our city.
So you would need to tell the resident or the business anyway then at that point.
Potentially, yeah, but we certainly would be notifying the alarm or monitoring service.
Okay. Well, I feel for you. I know that this is a problem. I'm disappointed in our businesses and our residents that haven't paid their fines for false alarms when they could have taken care of that, or the companies, and that is, you know, upsetting.
Mayor, Councilmember Osborne, they're not off the hook. We are aggressively going after them, and we're working with legal on that right now. Matter of fact, some of the letters are already drafted. So.
All right. Thank you.
Councilmember Pizzillo.
I think Joanne hit most of them. Just a couple quick ones here. Do you have any stats on those false alarms on the 98% as the officers were going to them? Maybe hurt on the way as a result of being taken out of service? Something else happened that they weren't able to get there in time as a result of going on a false alarm?
Mayor, Councilmember Pizzillo, specifically not stats on what you've just described. What we do see is that calls that come in while the officers are tied up on that, we are leaving patrol areas vacant, meaning that the patrol officer from there is being pulled from one area to help another. And we have seen delays in response times because that officer's not there, and we're pulling another officer from another beat to answer that call that's closer. So we do experience that on a regular basis, and if you look at just kind of math in my own head, that 2,600 plus calls we went to, that happens about 8 times every day. So, in the current situation.
Okay, from the process standpoint, finance, I guess they have the business license, so you're going to be using finance, I guess, for the billing of the actual business license?
That's correct.
And as far as billing, if you have a false alarm, you're going to use the ticket as the source, but will finance bill them as well for the fee, or who's going to do the billing of that?
That is how we're hoping that it works out. We haven't worked out a lot of the fine details yet on how that's going to look and feel. We've got several drafts of the form to where we can just have one form that does everything. The officer fills it out at the scene, and that then can become the invoice, and it just needs to be sent by somebody.
And how many times billing will you give them before their license is revoked for lack of payment, so to speak?
Mayor, Councilmember Pizzillo, what we've outlined in the ordinance is that if they don't pay within 30 days, they're assessed a penalty on top of that, and after 60 days, we have the option of pulling their permit or not. So we're not going to give them months and months and months.
And at that point, the homeowner would be notified, as I guess Councilmember Osborne had mentioned.
Potentially, that's not part of the ordinance now, but it really makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have to let them know that the alarm ordinance, it's, their company at some point are no longer being responded to.
Being responsive.
We could add that as a section B in that part.
I think that'd be very helpful.
Sure.
That's all. Thank you. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Okay, I just have a couple points, and for the public, I think all of us have talked to the chief already on
Right.
this. So I'm not going to surprise you with my comment.
Okay.
But I thought of something in the last few minutes, is that we're likely increasing the cost of what we call the alarm business, the provider, correct?
Correct.
And I think it's reasonable to assume that he's going to pass that on to his customers one way or another.
Certainly.
So although the citizens might be finding a reduction in the cost of governing, the cost of securing their home is probably going to go up. And maybe that's fair because a lot of people don't have alarm systems.
Certainly.
But my concern is a matter of safety and protection of our people. And as I told you before, Mark, if an alarm goes off, the door alarm, window alarm, and the alarm company will get the notification, however that's done, and they are to immediately call the house, correct?
The subscriber, yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Let's say it's residential, and they call the house, and what if the person is unable to answer the phone call?
Mayor Kavanaugh, what we've discussed in here and what we've tried to design into that, and again, very good question, very good scenario, and one that we have talked about. If they've exhausted all of their options in trying to verify that, the alarm company can still call us to go to that alarm, and we will go. If they call and ask us to go, we will go. But they need to just understand that if it is a false alarm, then there's a penalty involved for them.
But as I read your criteria, that's not in here, that would be a reason that you'd respond. To me, because we don't know, there could be a person who's harmed.
Sure.
And as soon as the person broke through the door, they subject the person to some kind of injury. The person can't respond. I think you need to be there, even though this may not have occurred. But that's what our police are for. So I just, if this ordinance in some way assures me that the failure to respond to a call will not deny a subscriber of a police response if the police are notified by the business that there was no response when they called. Is that clear? Or do I need to restate it?
Mayor Kavanaugh, yeah, I'm not specifically sure I understand what you're saying. I think I do, but I'd rather be certain.
I understand what you're saying, and
me too.
I have that same concern. I understand that.
Yeah, if there is an alarm, the alarm company calls, the person does not answer the call, the subscriber
Sure.
does not answer the call, then I assume the business would call the police and tell them that there's an alarm, but there was no response when they called on the alarm. In my opinion, if in fact they can't get a response from the household, you should respond to that.
And that's the way it is now.
That's
the way it is
exactly how
now,
it's
but
working now.
But the way I interpret this is going to change
Well, yeah.
Okay.
on account of economies of operation.
Yeah.
Well, but okay. If we still want them to respond to not getting a hold of someone, which, to me, most alarm companies, if the house alarm's going off, they call the house, nobody answers the house.
Yep.
Then they go down their line and they call, the cell phone, and then they call this, and they go down the series of phone numbers. But they probably would have already called you at this point, is what I'm gathering. And if you show up and so Jim, Mayor, you would like them to still show up at the home. And if it ends up being a false alarm, then we bill the company. So you don't really want us to stop that flow of response, is what
Yeah,
Right.
and I think you got a good point there. It would be good if the alarm business would try other phone lines. But in the interim, though, they need to call the police that on the one phone there was no response. And I think you should make an assumption that maybe those people are unable to respond for a reason of whatever, injury or whatever, or worse. And that's what concerns me.
It's true.
I just don't
Well,
want
what
to
you're saying
deny
is
them
you-
that that service.
What you're saying is that basically what is in the ordinance now should stay in the ordinance relative to this situation.
Or rewrite it in such a way that we respond in this particular situation, condition, and it's going to cost you more money.
Sure.
But it's what we're all about. I would hate to have to answer a question from a spouse who said our alarm went off and my wife was unable to respond because she was beaten. And then she was really harmed. And we could have responded, but there was no answer to the call. So it could be very serious.
So truly, what it's part of it should be that that verification process is we haven't been able to get hold of anyone, or the response is not occurring at the home or the place of business, or I had the question in here with the business, if they cannot get a hold of a manager, does that mean that you still will respond? If there's no one to get a hold of, then you're still going to have to respond, or you're saying you don't want to respond because you're going to make.
There may be no one home.
Well, I know, or at the business.
So it would be a waste.
Well,
but,
that's why the alarm companies I deal with, they go down the list. Now, that doesn't mean everybody does, but that's all I know.
That's correct. Mayor Kavanaugh, Councilmember Osborne. We don't have consistent procedures with all of our alarm companies, and there are about 40 of them that do business in our city. Some very large, some very small companies.
Okay. Would you like to work on this a little more?
I would
Okay.
like to postpone it.
Yeah.
I have no problem with that.
You agree?
Yes.
I think you're on the right track, and I think that we do want to put this response more on the alarm company, and that they should be paying. I mean, as a citizen, we're paying these alarm fees to the companies to give us that service, and they're not following through on their service. And then we're paying for alarm permits ourselves, and we're paying for false alarms. So we're paying plenty to get that, first-class service. But unfortunately, it's not doing the job, and so it's not. And we need to change something. But I don't know that we've hammered out what that change is yet.
And I appreciate that, Mayor Kavanaugh, Councilmember Osborne. There is no single solution to the alarm issue, and it really takes a cooperative effort with the alarm companies and the police departments. The problem that we seem to be running into is that these are private for-profit companies, and they like that we're verifying their alarms right now.
And they're making a profit.
Yes, they are.
Just a quick question, so I understand, Chief. If alarm goes off, say in my house, and there's nobody there, the alarm company is going to call first to see if it was a false alarm, I assume, to try to get somebody at the house, correct?
Depends on the company.
Okay, but this would request them to do that, because you're not going to do anything unless you hear back from the alarm company.
Correct.
So, again, is this a wrong assumption? If the alarm company calls my house and they can't reach anybody at the house, or they can't reach anybody, even with a cell phone, won't they call you at that point and say, hey, I've got an alarm, but I can't confirm that?
It's not verified.
Yeah, it's not verified. You would go out at that point?
Under the new proposed, we could,
Okay.
should they say, we need you to verify this for us.
Okay.
Or that we have no verification mechanism here. Currently, what we're doing is we're going once they call us. Whether they've called you first or not, we don't always know that.
And I've had an alarm company that by the time they've called me, they've already said the police are on the way, so they're not verifying it. There's two types of businesses out there doing this.
Correct.
So yeah, I understand that. Okay. But I think we're not at a complete good feeling with this yet. So I'd move that we continue it.
My only concern is, again, what the mayor is mentioning is somehow you put the onus on the alarm companies, I agree, but the same token is have them confirm, because if there's somebody actually hurt inside, you don't know that unless the alarm company says they can't reach somebody. Feel bad if there is somebody actually in there because they tried to call, and we didn't respond. But I think that could be resolved by having the alarm company call and say they didn't reach anybody in there, put the onus on them. I don't know. I mean, just thinking out loud here as far as that is concerned, but we got to do something with the 98% false.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we're trying to do, is just put that onus back on the alarm company, who's making the money off of everything.
Right.
So.
Yeah, safety is paramount. And not only safety of the person in the house, but safety of your people driving to the house.
Sure, absolutely.
So, but I think we need to look at this a little more.
I think we all agree.
Okay. Do I need a motion to, I guess I do.
Make a motion to postpone.
Do I have a motion to postpone?
So moved.
Second. Motion, Councilmember Osborne, and a second from Councilmember Souza. All those in favor, all those in favor signify by stating aye.
Yeah. Aye.
Against?
No,
4-0. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, we'll move to the business part of our agenda, and we have two items, both of which are pleasant items. And we're going to start, let me get my, consider the appointment of Sherry Loretano is being moved to the beginning of the business agenda. On some of your agendas, it may have been third. She's been moved to the front. If the appointment is approved by council, Mrs. Loretano will take the oath of office, and then will take her place on the dais. Councilmember Loretano may participate in discussion, but per Arizona statutes, cannot take any action tonight. I believe it's 24 hours. As stated in the agenda, the council can hold an executive session for discussions regarding this particular appointment or recommendation by the subcommittee. Okay, we'll now consider appointing Sherry Loretano to fill the vacant position created by Councilmember Rob Antoniak. Staff presentation by Rorick Massey.
Mr. Mayor and members of the council, I think you just gave my presentation.
All I'm doing is reading.
But this evening, the item you have in front of you is to consider the possible appointment of Ms. Loretano to fill the unexpired term of Councilmember Antoniak, who tenders his resignation from the City Council in February of this year. As we've previously discussed, when the council first voted to recognize the vacancy on the council, per the city charter, the council does have the authority to appoint the replacement to the council seat to fill the unexpired term, which would be through June of next year. Pursuant to City Council policy, a subcommittee was appointed consisting of the Mayor, Vice Mayor Lord, and Councilmember Cavalier. They met on February 22nd and considered the 19 applicants from our city citizens to fill the seat, and they were unanimous in the recommendation of Ms. Loretano. A little background, Ms. Loretano's application and her resume are included in the council packet tonight. But she's an attorney, which makes her good in my book. She has her own firm, the firm of Babe and Loretano. She previously worked with the City of Phoenix in the prosecutor's office for a number of years. She served our city as a member of our Planning and Zoning Committee and also on the City Center Committee a few years back. With that, as the mayor indicated, if the council approves Ms. Loretano's appointment this evening, she'll immediately be sworn into office by the city clerk and consistent with state statute. While she can participate in tonight's discussion, she can't take any legal action for 24 hours. With that, I would answer any questions that the council may have this evening.
Okay, thank you. Any comments from the public? Okay, seeing none, could I have a motion to seat Sherry Loretano to the council?
So moved.
Second.
Motion from Councilmember Souza and a second from Councilmember Osborne. It's open for discussion on council.
I think you answered a lot of it, but, just for the benefit of the public, would you like to maybe just step up and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Mayor and Council, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity, and I really do appreciate it. I moved to Goodyear in 1995 when I returned from law school in Spokane, Washington. I lived in Estrella Vista, and about 7 years ago, my husband, who is very present and very supportive, and we moved up to Estrella Mountain Ranch, where we live there with our two children. They're 5 and 7 years old, and they go to Estrella school up there. My parents liked it so much they followed suit and actually lived right down the street from us. So I really do want Goodyear to be the best it can be. I've been an attorney for about 15 years. I was with the City of Phoenix. I was the head of their domestic violence unit. Very interested in public service, as I would like to serve the city, so I do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And your husband is Stephen? Yes, Your Honor. I'd like to welcome you also, Stephen. Okay. All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Sherry, you're a member of council, so congratulations. Councilmember Loretano, you are welcome to join us at the dais.
I think not yet.
Oh, okay.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, and your name, Sherry Loretano, do affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America and the Constitution and laws of the state of Arizona, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and defend them against all enemies whatsoever, and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of council member according to the best of my ability. So I do affirm. Congratulations.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I was saying there was only one item after this, and I was wrong. I was thinking a park and ride was a business item, and it is not. It's a consent item. So we do have two items to go yet. And first, we'll consider a resolution for the formation of Goodyear Citizens Corps Council, and Tim Newble will present.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Actually, this evening, we're going to have Sam Debus, our Vista volunteer. Since he put in the work, he's going to actually do the presentation this evening.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. Thank you for having me. I'm just going to briefly explain what the Citizens Corps program is at the national level, and then see why it would be useful to have here in the city of Goodyear. Basically, the Citizens Corps program was created in 2002 after the 9/11 terrorist attacks. It falls under FEMA, under the Department of Homeland Security, and this was created by President George Bush at the time. And the purpose was to create greater cohesion between emergency response forces and volunteers within at the local level. So basically, cities, states, and counties. And the reason for this was that the president felt it was necessary to have local volunteers who would be able to respond to emergency situations lest they come up. For example, 9/11. And as has recently occurred, situations like Haiti, Chile, no one's really sure what can happen, and it's important to have volunteers who can properly respond to these situations and be an aid to emergency response forces instead of being a hindrance and making things more difficult. So basically, it's just to create greater cohesion between volunteers and the trained forces that we have. The purpose of the program is to help build volunteer programs within local government, and having a Citizen Corps Council within a city allows that city to access grant funds from FEMA and the federal government. So by establishing a Goodyear Citizen Corps Council, we could then access funds which would be allocated for 4 volunteer programs. And these are the so-called Citizen Corps programs. And these are Fire Corps, VIPS, Volunteers and Police Service, CERT, Community Emergency Response Team, and Fire Corps. Did I mention that one already? Yeah. Fire Corps, CERT, VIPS, and Neighborhood Watch. Thank you. All right, Block Watch. And so basically, with this council, these 4 volunteer programs will be able to apply to a FEMA grant, and they would be able to gain resources and money to get equipment, training, basically sometimes clothing, whatever they can do to help assist these volunteer programs, which help assist the police and fire in our city. And the Citizen Corps Council, as you can see, state, county, and local Citizen Corps Councils cover about 80% of the total U.S. population. So it's a very common thing throughout the country. Just in the West Valley alone, Peoria, Surprise, Sun City West, Sun City. They all have citizen core councils, as well as Phoenix, Mesa, Gilbert. There's also a Arizona State Citizen Core Council and a ACR-CCC, which is basically a Maricopa City Citizen Core Council. So it's very common, and it's just a great way to get volunteers involved and to get grant funds from FEMA. And basically, our proposed makeup of this council would be 9 members. It would, of course, include the 4 volunteer programs, would have a vested interest in the grant process. That'd be CERT, VIPS, Neighborhood Watch, and Fire Corps. Of course, it's also important to get input from the greater community at large, community that's interested in volunteering, the faith-based community, as well as education. And we'd also like to include 2 businesses to round out the council, get their input as well. And then we would also have the emergency management coordinator, Othel Newbell, on the council, and he knows a lot about it. He would be able to help the council, the Citizen Core Council, go in the correct direction. Mr. Mayor, Council, if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you. Comments from the public? Okay. Could I have the clerk read the resolution by title only, please?
Adopt Resolution 10-1363 to establish the Goodyear Citizen Core Council.
Could I have a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Second.
A motion from Councilmember Souza and a second from Councilmember Pizzillo. Open for discussion.
What type of a liaison do you expect to have with the various departments in the city of Goodyear?
We're expecting to have volunteer liaisons. For example, for the CERT program, we would like to get a person who's gone through the CERT program, and they would have experienced the process, and they would be actually a volunteer involved in the program, and they'd be a liaison between essentially what it does on the volunteer side and the city, or the individual who runs the CERT program, which in this case would be Tim Newville.
Go through you then?
Yes, sir. For the CERT program. The other programs,
Okay.
for VIPS, we would go through police. For Blackwatch, we'd go through
Okay, so
MTAS. But it'd be volunteers on the council, and it wouldn't be the city staff, per se.
you don't see this interfering at all with the normal operation of various departments in the city?
No, I do not, because currently we already have CERT, VIPS, Neighborhood Watch, Fire Corps, faith-based. So basically these are all already up and running. The goal is to create a more cohesive body so that the volunteers can work better together, work better with the departments, and essentially access grant funds. So the only difference in operations would essentially be perhaps more cohesion and the ability to apply for this FEMA grant.
You appear to be a very good leader.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, council member.
Oh, excellent job.
Thank
Tip
you.
of the hat.
Good job.
Thank you. I appreciate
Thank
that,
you.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you
very much, Mayor. We appreciate it.
Looking forward to it. Okay, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Pizzillo?
Aye.
Councilmember Sousa?
Aye.
Councilmember Osborne?
Aye.
Mayor Kavanaugh?
Aye.
Passes 4-0.
Okay, we'll now consider accepting and receiving the City of Goodyear Neighborhood Circulator Study from Luke Alpert.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Tonight, we're requesting your receipt and acceptance of the City of Goodyear Neighborhood Circulator Study Final Recommendation Report, which was completed by staff from URS Corporation. The study was developed to identify community interest in a bus service that connects destinations within Goodyear. Existing transit service in Goodyear is currently primarily funded by Proposition 400, which is a voter-approved half-cent sales tax in Maricopa County, by Local Transportation Assistance Funds, or LTAP-2 funds, which is money that we receive from the Powerball, and also Federal Transit Administration funding. This study will provide guidance for staff to utilize when pursuing other funding opportunities for capital, operations, and maintenance funding for the neighborhood circulator service in Goodyear. With that, I'll turn over to Darren Lozano and Joe Wachowski from URS, and then we'll be available for questions afterwards.
That's it. All right. Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. Joe and I are really excited here today to talk about the Neighborhood Circulator Study that we actually completed in November of last year. And tonight what we're going to talk about is actually the beginning of the study, what we actually used to put together our recommended route. As part of the study, we also had an opportunity to talk to other cities within the region that have circulators. So we talked to folks from Phoenix, Tempe, Scottsdale, and Glendale. And one of the things that was stressed during the study was to get a key public involvement component. So if you remember way back when in the In Focus, we had one of the neighborhood surveys asking about circulator service. And we had some community meetings. I'll talk a little bit about that as we get to that part of the presentation. And then I'll also talk about some of the routes that were examined and evaluated, and then also show you actually what the recommended circulator route is. So when we first started this study, we had to figure out, well, what's going on in Goodyear? What are some of the different things that are going on in terms of population, employment? And what we saw from the residential population is, as you well know, Goodyear is really a linear city with population concentrated in the northern area near the Palm Valley neighborhood, also around I-10, and then as you get to Estrella Mountain Ranch. So the challenge becomes, how do you implement a circulator that's going to serve all those folks? Well, as part of the study, we were actually tasked to develop a pilot route. So where are we going to start at? So that's what we actually came up with at the very end of this study. And the other key part of this is a circulator, as Joe will talk about, is meant to really connect with existing transit. And we all know the transit is pretty limited here in Goodyear right now. Most of the Valley Metro routes, they're right along the northeastern portion of the city. We do have the Ajo Regional Connector, which actually goes very infrequently through the center of the city. But generally, transit's really not established here. And this last bullet item just kind of shows the general trends of the population and employment. On a regional level, population and employment are really growing. These numbers are actually from 2007, and with the recent economic downturn, they might not be as accurate, but those will change. But in essence, the general trend is population and employment are growing. So that's something to consider for this long-range study at looking at a circulator. I'm going to turn over to Joe now. He's going to explain a little bit of how the circulator operates within a community.
Thank you, Darren. First of all, what is a circulator and how does it function, and how does it relate to some of the other transit services in the region? First of all, it's a service that usually operates in either a shuttle loop, one-way or two-way, or sometimes a back-and-forth type of shuttle. And its real focus is within the community to connect activity centers and perhaps residential areas within the community to those activity centers. Whoops. In this next slide, you see the word circulator highlighted there. This shows where the circulator fits within the transit hierarchy. At the top of the slide, the paratransit, the shuttles, and circulators are the most community-focused, the most locally focused transit services in the whole range of transit services. At the bottom of the slide where you see express, regional, intercity, those are some of the longest distance transit services that connect different parts of the region but not necessarily help you get around the community. And in the middle with the local and limited stop service, you have a bit of a hybrid, some community connectivity and some regional connectivity. But we're here tonight to talk about the community-focused type of services. One of the aspects of the study was let's learn lessons from other communities that have implemented circulators, community-focused transit service. So we did an extensive survey and got great cooperation from the half-dozen community cities shown here, 5 of which are in Arizona, and that gave us a lot of good ideas about the lessons they learned with putting in community-focused transit, such as a circulator. Some of the key things that came out of that survey was, as Darren already mentioned, involving the community, public involvement, seeing what types of activity centers they might want to be connected to, see if there's a need for serving special events, and that's certainly something of interest here. Most of the operating funding is provided by local taxes. Many of the circulators are free, and some have a low type of fare. And there's a really big thing about providing a community identity. If you remember the slide earlier that showed the paratransit, shuttle, and circulator as being community-focused, while at the bottom of the slide more the regional-focused, I think the circulators have the opportunity and really the desire to say, this is yours. It's really focused on your community. Here's some of the, just a quick summary of some of the information we received from the Pierce City Review. There's a much more extensive report that we produced. Again, mostly operating funds by local taxes. The rides sometimes, often free, but sometimes a low fare, whereas with a metropolitan or regional service, there's generally always a fare. The hours of operation are pretty generous. We call this the time span of service, so that you can get to and from a number of activity centers and back. And the frequencies, while they range anywhere, they're shown here from, let's say, 10 to 60 minutes. We found that about 30 minutes is important for people to be able to make a functional use of the circulator to get somewhere and to get back without using up too much time. I think with that, I'll turn it back to Darren, and he'll talk more about the community and the alternatives.
Thank you. So I touched on this a little bit. There really was a pretty big public outreach component. We had a few meetings. We had 3 meetings, actually, one in the northern portion of Goodyear, one at the City Hall, and then one in the Estrella Mountain community. We put out the survey through a variety of means. It was out on the city website for about a month and a half. Again, the survey was available in the in-focus letter, and that's really where we got most of the input. In total, we received about 350 surveys back from the public, which doesn't sound like much, but being that it's a long-range study, there wasn't funding committed to it, there wasn't a time frame when it's going to be done, it was really beneficial to how we actually put together and implemented these proposed alignments. And then we did have someone out at the GAIN event in the fall of 2008 to kind of introduce the public to, when you throw the term circulator out there, not a whole lot of people know what that is, but when we had pictures of, say, the Gus bus or the Dash or the Alex, they realized, oh, okay, that's what a circulator is. So it's interesting to me to see if we want to have it in this community. And so as we took the survey and took the results of the survey, that's how we started to put together the proposed alignments and proposed concepts. So some of the questions we asked really centered around the operation. So we asked folks, how often do you think it should run? Should it be a Monday through Friday service, a 7-day-a-week service? And as you see from that first pie chart on the upper left there, more than half the folks thought it should be a 7-day-a-week service. The frequency should be right around 30 minutes. The folks thinking that probably 60 minutes is just not enough service, and that's pretty much what the West Valley local bus routes are at right now. And 15 minutes, they felt like, I guess, a half hour was better than that. So we worked with those 2 principles as we started to work the alternatives. And the last graph just kind of gives you an idea of kind of the age group of the folks that we received information from, which is pretty much was even across the board, with most of the folks between 31 and 50 responding to the survey. So the next step in the process is to actually connect the destination. So it's pretty simple, basically. You find out where are people going to go, you connect those dots on the map, and there's your route. Well, when we first asked folks, we actually listed out the destinations, and we asked folks to rank them or pick the top 5 areas or destinations you think would be served by a circulator. Now, as you see here, we actually, in addition to actually asking about existing locations, we also asked about future destinations. So you see up there some of the higher responses went to Estrella Falls Mall. At the time, the Goodyear Ballpark wasn't open yet, so that's there as well. What was the other one? Well, the community park at that time was hosting most of the community events, which of course have now been moved to the ballpark area. And so as you see the pilot route, you can see how we actually started to connect the dots here. So I'll briefly go through the 4 different types of alignments that we looked at. So let's start here with the all-city loop. We want to take a look at a possible loop that will connect the entire area of the city. And for those there in the back, this actually shows the entire city of Goodyear planning area. I should say all the way down south to the Estrella Mountain community. So this all-city loop, the thought being that this is one big comprehensive loop that would serve all areas of the city using major arterials. And following in line with that, we also developed a single-line service. So same thing. This one originated at approximately the Goodyear Park and Ride, headed up north through the Palm Valley area, and then south through Estrella to hit all the major destinations along the parkway. And then we took a look at some of the more traditional type circulators that you might see in the valley. And these are kind of the smaller loops, things that you could really work with and really stress interconnectedness within the city. So the ones on the left shows a 3-loop system with 2 loops in the north of the Goodyear Ballpark in that area, and then 1 serving Estrella Mountain community. And then the second slide actually shows, or the second figure shows, 1 loop serving the entire northern area with 1 in the southern portion. And another thing we looked at was actually a destination-based circulator. So that's where we have these I-10 loop alternatives. And we essentially just connected all the dots within the I-10 corridor that were major destinations. So, of course, the one on the left being a little bit smaller of a loop, connecting more to the southern area, and the one on the right going a little farther north to connect to some of the communities. So here's a quick snapshot of the alternatives analysis that we conducted. And so as you can see, all 4 of the loops met the survey findings. So they all basically connected to areas where people wanted to go. When we talk about cost-effective headways, that means, are we actually running the service? And again, we use 30-minute frequency being, that's what we heard from the public, that they wanted to operate the service at. Well, if you operate that, is it really cost-effective to run 30 minutes at these proposed routes? Well, the first one, the All-City Loop, was about a 56-mile loop. So if you're going to run buses every 30 minutes, you're looking at the approximate number being 6 to 12. And that 6 to 12 is based on a range of 8 mile per hour to a 13 mile per hour vehicle, and that we found is pretty much the average of all the circulators in the region, and that takes account for stops, stoplights, transitioning folks, bus stops, that kind of deal. So that's why there's such a range in the vehicles. Then you see the 2 smaller loop systems would require obviously fewer vehicles there, and then you can see the cost. And the cost was based on a $40 to $60 cost per hour, and that's pretty much typical throughout the region and also throughout the country. We looked at several circulators, and they all operate within that range, so we felt like that was a pretty comfortable range. And one thing of note here, all those costs up there are a one route system. So, for example, that's only counting the clockwise running of a circulator, whereas it's pretty easy. You just double that amount, and you get the clockwise and counterclockwise. So this here, actually, the recommended pilot route that we worked with Luke and his team, looking at all the survey results and actually connecting the destinations. Again, for those in the back, let me try and orient you where you're at. The yellow line kind of in the upper, I guess, third of that is I-10. And so some of the major destinations it hits is the Goodyear Park and Ride, and then some of the future ones being the Estrella Falls Mall, coming down through what we call the University Park area to the Goodyear Ballpark, and then out back west towards kind of the historic Goodyear area. So that's pretty much an 11-mile loop. Now, why did we do an 11-mile loop and a 15-mile loop? Well, it all is based on funding. So if you can implement that smaller loop at a reasonable cost, well, if that's successful, then you can start to expand it. So that 15-mile, a little dashed portion there to the left actually hits the Canyon Trails community. So you kind of get folks, you kind of get to go into the residential neighborhoods. So you can kind of interconnect those folks there. And then here are some of the quick features of those 2 routes. Again, we took a look at the $40 to $60 per hour cost, and you're looking right around a $500,000 for the 11-mile loop for just one direction of service, and then you add on the extra 4 miles, and you're between $620,000 and $929,000 per year. And then these are the number of buses between 2 and 3, of course, with the 1 recommended contingency vehicle in case one were to break down. And we averaged out the approximate travel time, and we looked at the 11-mile loop being about a 65-minute ride with the 15-mile loop being 85 minutes.
I'm sorry, can I ask a quick question?
Sure. Almost.
Did that include the price of the vehicle, or was that just what it's going to cost?
Good question. This is only operating cost. Yeah. So capital cost for the vehicles was not included in this. Okay. And so finally, after we have this alternative route, so what do you do with it next? Well, there's several things that have to go into the planning and implementation of this route. And this shows you, as you're hitting on there, the funding source. Where are you going to get funding not only to purchase the vehicles, but also to operate it? As Joe showed, there are several different ways that other cities are implementing their circulator service. So we put together a funding report that actually talks about the various, I guess, options out there at this time. Then you need to determine where you're actually going to stop the buses. There are several destinations, again, that we could benefit from the circulator stop. And we add up here flag stop zones, which are the city of Tempe uses. And that's helpful for neighborhoods because, not a lot of folks want to walk to where the transit service is. So if you implement this, you say anywhere within the neighborhood, someone could just flag down the driver and pick them up. But there's a whole lot more planning that goes into that, but that's just kind of an idea. And then by route type, we mean, should it actually stay on that loop system that we show by the line, or should it deviate? So some systems actually started out with deviating routes, which meant that if there's no one on the bus, there's one passenger that wants to be driven home, the bus driver would do that. Glendale started out that way, but once the service actually got more popular, then they went to the fixed route. But that's something to consider. Then, of course, the days and hours of operation, and then, as Joe mentioned, the special event consideration is something to take into account. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Opportunity for comments from the public. Seeing none, could I have a motion? And the motion is to accept and receive the Goodyear Neighborhood Circulator Study Final Recommendation Report. So we're accepting and receiving it is the motion.
I'll make the motion to accept and receive.
Second.
Motion from Councilmember Pizzil and a second from Councilmember Osborne. It's open for discussion.
I'm sorry, start right there. You know, this was big on the survey that was just given to our own citizens. I'm not sure how many we had, 600, and it was, transportation was huge on there. So I appreciate this is timely, this information we needed. Not sure where we go from here, but I appreciate the study. Thank you.
Well, for it to proceed, we're going to have finances. We're kind of stymied at that particular point in time. So that's my comment.
Okay. Thank you.
No, I appreciate the presentation. And again, like Councilmember Sousa mentioned, financing is always the key. So,
Yeah, thanks for coming. That was a nice. In fact, we do need this, so we appreciate your setting us on the right course. Thank you. All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it, 4-0. Okay, we now move to comments and recommendation on current events and presentations. Let me start that off. I rarely do, but I want about our meeting on with Larry Lang on the finance. I can do at 5 o'clock Wednesday or Thursday. How about the rest of you? Wednesday is sort of neat because the committee meets at 6, so some of them could visit and listen in.
Thursday I teach school, so I can't do it. I can't do it Thursday.
Good for you?
Wednesday will work for me.
Okay.
I have to look. I don't have my calendar with me.
Okay.
Wednesday will be fine.
Okay, and that assumes our 2 other council members are well and able. Okay?
Yeah.
Good. Okay. So we'll go for. Can you get that posted, Lynn?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. Opportunity for current events.
I have my list. Well, I missed the last council meeting, but a few things that I've done recently. First of all, I was in a 2-day crisis training program that was through the NLC, the FEMA, and Homeland Security, and really opened my eyes to what's going on. So I certainly appreciated the presentation earlier, and I have a lot of questions for our city. I've been on the council for 3 years now, and as a council person, not that I want to control a crisis, I need to understand it a little more, and I don't feel that I've been given enough of that information. And now that we have 2 other, I don't want to say newbies, but I think that it's time for a council to kind of hear those type of things, what our duties are, because you know, if there was a crisis, we would have people asking us what's going on, and so we need to kind of understand the way it goes. I've had multiple meetings regarding our homeless youth, and I'm very happy to say that we have an event that's underway. Sounds like May 8th, we're going to be having at the ballpark, an event with the teens and bringing awareness to the homeless youth. Went to the Tres Rios Festival. I was there at 10 when no one was there yet. But by the end of the day, I think there was about, I want to say 1,500 to 2,000 people came through on Saturday. Saturday was still the nice day. Let's see, did go to the opening day of spring training, and I did attend in Tucson the after-school program that was by the League of Cities. That was, that was another timely event that I went to, because the question that I asked for our citizens in our survey was about after-school programs, and that ended up being, something that was key to our citizens, and came through on the survey. So I was happy to hear that. And let's see, lastly, speaking of the survey, and I guess this actually I'll wait for our next section we go to the manager.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I don't know how many comments you have had about your article in the newspaper regarding the baseball situation, contributions by cities to support Mesa's acquisition or retention of the Chicago Cubs. I am one that is not in favor of an additional tax on top of our admission tickets, and I appreciate your comments to that effect. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your comment.
Nothing to add at this time.
Just one quickie. Mary Fightmaster was in Columbus, Ohio the other day, and she said, hey, there's the mayor. He's on TV. Yeah. So the Ohioans know what we're doing out here, okay? And they care about Goodyear, and the Cincinnati Reds and Cleveland Indians are making a difference in our visibility. So, opportunity now for City Manager.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we will follow up. We would have to post if we're able to make the Wednesday 5 o'clock work session. We'd have to post that by tomorrow at 5. Just so we have direction, is this, you are looking to have all the council members present at this, or do you want to proceed if we don't have a full 7?
I think we should try to get all 7. If we had 6, I wouldn't want to delay it. But
No, but less than that, no.
no.
Okay, we'll confirm tomorrow. And then the last thing is, just as an update, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and several of the council members that were able to make our inaugural Reds and Indians game this past Friday. We had about 4,600 fans in attendance, and that actually increased on Saturday to 5,500. Today, we need to reach out to the weather service and have a little better weather because we were down to about 2,100. However, just encourage the public to go to the games tomorrow. The Diamondbacks are playing the Reds, and that should be a very good game. Weather we hear is being promised as being excellent, so look forward to the public being out there. But again, thank you for council support and for being there. It was a great Friday kickoff for the season.
It was. Thank you very much to your staff and to the volunteers. It's great service that they provide us, really is. Who won today?
It was the Reds.
Good.
So they were due to win one.
They what?
Yeah, they were due to win a game. Yeah, so we're
Who'd they beat?
optimistic. Today was the Kansas City Royals.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Questions of staff?
I did, I'm sorry.
Go
You know, I was not here for the presentation of the survey, so I kind of read it on my own just earlier this last week. And 2 things kind of concern me. And one of them was the central area of Goodyear felt that their quality of life was lessened than other areas. And don't know where we're going to go from here yet as to how at least we recognize it. I hear him, we hear him, and how we're going to accomplish a change in that. Don't know what that's going to be yet, but it is a concern. And also the customer service level, still that it was higher, but it went down, and we need to find out why that occurred and how we're going to see that change. So those were just 2 of my concerns, and was, like I said earlier, glad to see the response about after-school program. Thank you.
Good comments. Thanks.
Just real quickly, I know staff has sent out a notice about some of the weed control, but I notice, up as I'm heading up north of Litchfield Road, north of McDowell, around the golf course, and I guess the Palm Valley Golf Course. And my understanding is new owners in there, but some of those areas surrounding the golf course there on the right-of-way seems to be getting quite large, some of those weeds. So I don't know if that's in that part of that area, but if you could have code enforcement take a look at that, because some of them are going quite sizable. So I would appreciate that.
Thank you. We will follow up.
Okay, and lastly, welcome again. Glad to have you on the team.
Yes, welcome.
Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.